In this video, we'll be taking a look at 4 NBA games happening on January 3rd, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 8 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 4 NBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start: if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Minnesota Timberwolves versus Miami Heat. Minnesota is still without Terrence Shannon Jr., while Miami has ruled out Tyler Herro again and has Pelle Larsson sitting in that annoying questionable slot. That already tilts the stability edge toward the Timberwolves, because they at least know what they are working with, while the Heat have a bit of a medical mystery going on with the rest of their key rotation. The recent results for both teams have pulled this number down more than it probably should have. Miami has rattled off 4 straight wins, which looks slick on the surface, but they are still sitting in the 7th seed in the East, so this is not exactly a juggernaut rolling through the conference. That win over Denver looks great on a scoreboard graphic, but once you remember that Jokic and Porter did not play, it loses a good chunk of its shine. So the market is reacting to the streak, but the context says the gap between these teams is still very real, and the value is much more likely to sit with Minnesota here. Miami is not only missing Herro, they also have 4 other important pieces tagged as questionable, which is a headache if you are trying to maintain consistency on both ends of the floor. The Heat lean heavily on Adebayo to anchor the middle, and he is playing through a lingering back issue, which is not ideal when you are about to wrestle with Gobert, Randle, and Reed inside for 4 quarters. Minnesota brings size and depth in the front court, and when your main big is less than 100%, that is the kind of matchup that wears you down possession by possession. On the perimeter, Edwards should comfortably outscore Powell over the course of the game. If you are backing Minnesota, that individual scoring edge on the wing just adds to the case, because it gives them a reliable go-to option when the game tightens up. As our first pick for this matchup, the Minnesota Timberwolves to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Looking at the scoring profile, the Minnesota Timberwolves are averaging 118.5 points on 47.6% shooting from the field, while allowing 113.5 points on 45.5% shooting. So you have an offense that is efficient enough to put up numbers, paired with a defense that is solid but not suffocating, which usually keeps games open for scoring runs. From outside, the Timberwolves are hitting 37% of their threes, which is very healthy in the modern NBA, where spacing dictates everything. They are shooting 75.9% from the free throw line, which is not amazing but serviceable, and they are pulling down 44.3 rebounds per game, so they generate extra possessions without completely wasting them at the stripe. On the other side, the Miami Heat are averaging 119.2 points on 47% shooting and allowing 117.6 points on 45.2% shooting. That is basically a profile of a team that can clearly score but also gives plenty back, which is usually a good recipe if you are expecting a higher total and some momentum swings. Miami is knocking down 36.7% from deep and hitting 78.2% at the free throw line, with 45.4 rebounds per game. So both teams shoot the ball well enough from 3, both get to and convert at the line at a reasonable clip, and both rebound well enough that you can expect a consistent tempo rather than a slog. When you combine Minnesota sitting around 118.5 points per game with Miami sitting a touch above 119, then add in that both defenses allow north of 113 points per game, it naturally tilts this matchup toward a game with plenty of scoring opportunities. Even with injuries and questionable tags floating around, the offensive profiles and efficiency numbers suggest that this matchup is more likely to land on the higher scoring side rather than turning into a grind. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Philadelphia 76ers versus New York Knicks. Optimism should be pretty high in the Sixers camp walking into the Garden. They are catching a Knicks group that is patched together right now, and that matters a lot more over 48 minutes than people like to admit. Philly has ruled out Kelly Oubre Jr. again, but that is a known absence at this point. The rotation has already adjusted. New York, on the other hand, is missing Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson, Karl Anthony Towns, and Landry Shamet, which strips away a lot of glue, size, and spacing in one hit. The Sixers have wobbled a bit in their last two outings, sure, but overall they are still playing solid basketball with Maxey driving the offense and Embiid giving them that steady anchor in the middle. And the Knicks have been one of the steadier teams all season, and they were rolling before that flat performance against the Hawks last night. The problem is they do not get much time to stew on it. The Sixers show up immediately, and New York has to figure things out on the fly while short-handed. They do deserve some respect at home. A 15-3 straight-up record in their own building is no joke. But this spot is different. They are on the second leg of a back-to-back, and Karl Anthony Towns is dealing with an illness that already kept him out, which puts even more strain on the rest of the rotation. Meanwhile, the Sixers are as healthy as they have been in a while, and they hold the rest advantage. That combination usually shows up in the second half when legs get heavy and decision-making starts to slip for the tired side. They already went into this same arena a couple of weeks ago and beat the Knicks on the road, and that familiarity helps. From a numbers angle, they have been kind to bettors too, sitting at 19-12 to 1 against the spread, with particularly strong results on the road. Jalen Brunson is carrying a huge offensive load with all these absences, and while he is more than capable, asking him to keep trading blows with a rested trio like Embiid, George, and Maxey is a lot. Philly just looks like the healthier and more stable group right now, and when you also get the points with that profile, it naturally tilts the value to their side. As our first pick for this matchup, the Philadelphia 76ers to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. These teams put up a total of 223 points in their first meeting, a 116-107 Sixers win, and that came with both offenses playing pretty clean, nothing too wild in pace or chaos. The flow was mostly half-court creation, and that is still how both of these squads are wired to play. Now layer in the schedule. The Knicks are on the back end of a back-to-back, and tired legs usually show up first in jump shots and late clock possessions. They already lean toward grinding through sets rather than racing up and down, so when fatigue hits, the game can slow even more. Philadelphia is rested and perfectly fine with a controlled tempo built around Maxey and pick-and-roll actions and Embiid getting his touches at the nail and on the block. That style does not scream track meet. It leans into longer possessions and more deliberate decision-making. Defensively, the Sixers guard the three-point line well, which can nudge opponents inside the arc and force more contested twos. The Knicks allow just 46.4% shooting from the field, so they are not exactly rolling out a soft defense either. Put that together and you get a matchup where both sides are likely to make each other work for good looks rather than trading wide-open rhythm shots. For this one to sail up to 233 or more, you are probably talking about either a sudden uptick in pace or an unusual level of shot making across the board. Outside of a game where the whistle goes crazy and both teams live at the line, that is a tall ask given the situational setup and how these rosters prefer to play. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Atlanta Hawks versus Toronto Raptors. The Hawks are still without Trae Young, who is also swirling around in trade rumors, while the Raptors continue to play without the injured Jakob Poeltl. Atlanta has suddenly shown real life with 2 strong wins after a rough stretch, and it is hard not to connect that to Young sitting, even if that sounds a bit harsh at first. When Young has played this season, the Hawks have often looked flat, sometimes outright bad, on both ends. When he has been out, they just went out and smacked the Timberwolves and the Knicks by double digits, which is not a small thing. The pattern is not subtle anymore. It feels like these two sides, Young and the franchise, are drifting toward a breakup, even if nobody puts it that plainly in the press. Atlanta goes into Toronto on Saturday on the second night of a back-to-back, which is not ideal, but they are facing a Raptors team that has been, at best, average and is fresh off losing to a short-handed Nuggets squad. All eyes really do go to the injury report here, because if Young stays out, the way this version of the Hawks is playing, their chances of winning go up, not down. Toronto completely wasted a big chance in that last game, losing to Denver without Jokic. From a betting angle, they have been a headache, covering only 5 times in 17 games, which is the kind of record that makes people stop trusting them with their money. Their recent form has swung all over the place, one night scoring 81 points and losing by 15 to the Nets, then 3 games later hanging 141 on the Warriors and winning by 14. You never really know which Raptors team is walking out of the tunnel. At home, they are just 10-8 straight up in 18 games, and they have failed to cover the spread in 12 of those, so the building is not giving them a magic cushion against the number. That matters when you are thinking about whether they should be trusted as favorites against a Hawks team that is finally showing some spark. As mentioned earlier, if Young remains out, the Hawks are in a strong spot to grab another win. He is currently listed as out with a quad issue, which fits how they have been approaching his situation lately. Jalen Johnson is playing at a really high level, giving them energy and versatility, and the overall group looks more connected, especially on the road in these recent wins. Yes, the Hawks are on the second game of a back-to-back, and that is never ideal, but with the way they are playing without Young, they are very live to surprise Toronto again and walk out with another upset on the road as underdogs. As our first pick for this matchup, the Atlanta Hawks to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. This matchup comes with very different styles, which shapes how many points we can realistically expect. Atlanta plays at one of the fastest tempos in the league, sitting around the fourth fastest pace, but that constant running is harder to sustain when you have 0 days of rest. On the other side, Toronto is closer to the slow lane, ranking around the 7th slowest pace in the league. They lean into grinding possessions and putting their stamp on games with defense rather than constant transition bursts. They also pride themselves on strong defensive work, sitting as roughly the 7th best team in defensive efficiency, which fits the eye test when they are locked in. Put that together and the Hawks' usual pace should get pulled down a bit, especially with tired legs from the back-to-back. The Raptors will be happy to walk the ball up, run their sets, and force Atlanta to score in the half court instead of racing out in transition. The betting trends around the total back up a slower, tighter game. The under is 11-7 in Toronto home games, which says their building has not exactly been a playground for overs. The under is also 4-1 when the Raptors have had 2 days of rest, which is when their defense often looks sharpest. For the Hawks, the under is 5-3 when they have no rest, which fits the idea that their legs and pace both dip on the second night. When you mix a tired, fast-paced team, a slow home side that leans on defense and under trends on both rest profiles, it points toward a game where scoring does not come easy for long stretches. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Charlotte Hornets versus Chicago Bulls. You have to like the idea that Bridges, Miller, Ball, and Knuppel are all expected to be on the floor here. In this league, you never really know until lineups lock, and there is always that little voice wondering if Bridges will actually play the second half of a back-to-back. But even with that in mind, we already know Giddey and White are out for the Bulls. These two teams match up fairly evenly on paper, which is what makes the player types matter so much. Giddey brings a similar profile to Ball as a big point guard who does a bit of everything, so losing him for Chicago changes how they initiate offense and how they defend size at the guard spot. Trey Jones, by contrast, is more of a steady hand type, the classic low-turnover guard who keeps things organized but does not warp a defense the same way. Knuppel has been one of the better rookies in the league this season, and that is not an exaggeration. He just picked up co-rookie of the month in December alongside his former Duke teammate Cooper Flagg, which tells you how high the bar is that he is already clearing. What makes him so valuable here is that he is more than just a three-point specialist. He can attack closeouts, make reads, and contribute across possessions instead of only spacing the floor. When you stack all that up, the Hornets look like the livelier side as an underdog. They have their key playmakers available, they gain real value from Giddey and White being out on the other side, and they have a rookie wing in Knuppel who is already performing like a reliable piece rather than a project. That combination tilts the spread conversation in Charlotte's favor, even if the matchup as a whole feels close. As our first pick for this matchup, the Charlotte Hornets to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. Chicago loves to run. They sit second in adjusted tempo, and at home they usually get every chance to push the ball, especially when they see a defense they think they can stress in transition. With Braxton Miller finishing plays and Ball pushing the pace, Charlotte is a lot more explosive than their listed tempo rank of 24 suggests. Sometimes the numbers lag behind the eye test, and this feels like one of those spots where their personnel screams faster, higher scoring basketball than the raw pace metric alone. Defensively, neither side is going to be mistaken for a lockdown unit. That matters because when both defenses are shaky, it only takes a small bump in tempo for the scoreboard to move quickly. Charlotte had gone over in 2 straight before Friday, which hints at a team whose recent games have leaned toward higher totals rather than grind fests. These two have also gone over in 3 of their last 4 meetings, which is a nice little trend that matches the style profiles, not just a random fluke stretch. So you put a high-tempo home team in their preferred environment, add a Hornets group that can run more than their raw tempo suggests, and then drop in 2 suspect defenses, and it paints a picture of a matchup that has a very real path to a higher total. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.